that I'm blessed. It's a few L's and millions, so turn that loss to a
Becca Cooper Leebove.
Hi, yes, Leebove. It's okay.
Welcome to the Father Alchemist. I'm super happy that you're here. It's been forever since I've seen you, and it's been really amazing to watch your career grow, your family grow, and just all of the success that you've seen. And I've watched it from a distance, and then I think I had seen a post or something, and I'm like, holy crap! Like I had kind of disconnected from knowing that you were in marketing and branding, and that's like, I think. So I went down this journey a couple of years ago where I was just consuming content, and it was really just to become a better salesperson, a better leader. I was trying to just, I was opening the branch at the time, and then I started to realize, like, wow, there's a lot of people on here that are worth, hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're still doing videos. Like, why are these guys doing this? Anyway, it led me to this place where I now believe, I'm convicted that in the next 10 years, everything will be about personal brand. Like you look at major corporations, they have always wanted to, especially now, they want to have a conscience, right? But then you look at individuals and they always want to have like the corporation. And so I think that, the news will sort of start to go away. People will really start to look at just who they align with and who they trust, and they'll follow that individual. And so, in the real estate industry, I started thinking about this, and I realized that there's not really many people that I know that have built a really successful personal brand in real estate. And I've sort of learned along the way why that is. And I think most people are kind of doing it wrong. But it started me on this path, and, here we are now running the podcast, and
so excited for you. Oh my gosh.
I'm excited to have you here. So
thank you.
For those that don't know, Becca, we go way, way back, long before she owned ShuBu, and which, by the way, ShuBu is a woman-owned marketing and branding firm, right? And maybe you could talk about it a little bit and
just
do
branding.
it justice.
Well, first of all, Derek, I'm so excited to be here. I haven't seen you in a while, so fun and exciting.
Yeah. You look great, by the way.
Thank you.
You have not changed. That's
Neither
crazy.
of you. I have, though, but it's like owning your own business stress. But thank you. I'm so glad. Yes, ShuBu is a branding and marketing firm. So I've had it for 6 years now, and I've been in the business marketing for over 20 years in the Denver market, but also just working with clients nationally as well. So it's been fun.
And so did you start with Vail? Like where, because when we met, you were with Vail, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Was it after Vail you went to PorchLight?
So I earlier in my career, I was at like different ad agencies in town, like the traditional agency that you like, if you watch Mad Men, like the traditional agency. And then after that, I went to Starz Entertainment, which is a big like TV channel. And I was on the marketing team there. And I was there for like 7 years, actually. And then I went to Vail Resorts. So I was I led the creative services team at Vail Resorts. So that's kind of like all the photographers, the designers, the just anyone that creates anything. I like managed that team, and it did all of the marketing for across all of the mountains that Vail Resorts owned. So I was at the corporate office.
No kidding.
And that was really fun.
So were you going to school for this, or, I mean, because it sounds like you've got, this is all you've really done, right? But with different companies.
Definitely. I started like even before, I was part of the turnover to digital. So I started like back in my 20s, it was like print advertising and some digital. Yeah. And then I'm lucky because when I was very young, it just switched over to digital. So I've seen like from the beginning all the way to where we are now, which is insane. But I went to school actually at CU Boulder, and I was in the journalism school. So I was like more of a writer, but for marketing, it's all about words. Like words definitely drive a lot of the content, as you know. So I went into marketing just because I was a PR. I was doing journalism PR, and there wasn't a lot of jobs because the economy was right after September 11th. And then I just went straight into marketing, and I've been in it ever since.
That's
so
awesome.
Since I was like 22 years old. So it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. I used to think that sales was really like if you could be great at sales, you could really do anything and you could determine your income and make a bunch of money. And I still think that knowing how to sell is critical as an entrepreneur, right? Like you never really hear of, like when you think of a popular book, it never says best written book. It says best selling book.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you though. Sales is very important.
but what I've come to believe more recently is that marketing trumps sales, especially now because you have the internet. And if you can cast a wide enough net, you've got a global audience, right? And so being able to capture those individuals and also too, I think it's very different. Like sales to me is being able to educate, influence in a way that gets the client to realize what they need without maybe thinking it before, but also taking them down a path to get you what you need as well, right? And so it's sort of this joint effort to explore where you want them to go. But you know, with marketing, it's really, especially with like personal brand, you're putting out content now, right? You're putting out information, and it's really attraction rather than promotion. I think sales is more of a promotion type business and marketing's a little bit more of an attraction type business.
Yeah.
Right?
And you can't really, like you said, you have to be in front of so many people, and especially now because it's such a saturated market. I mean, there's so many things online. There's so many, you can follow a bazillion different people on several different channels. So it's all about, like you said, getting in front of as many people as you can, but also connecting with them. You don't want to be inauthentic,
Sure.
So I think it's about engagement too, like really connecting. And you said at the beginning, personal branding. And I just wanted to circle back to that people do connect with people. Like that is when we're putting together marketing strategy, we sometimes go back to that and we realize like, at the end of the day, people do connect with people. So it's not saying put all your eggs into like just your personal brand, but it is important to show like the people side of whatever you're doing. So No,
I'm glad you said that. And so I'm curious because after Vail, you went to PorchLight, which is a real estate brokerage here in Colorado that has become big. I mean, I work with a lot of the agents at PorchLight, but I feel like back when you were working with PorchLight at the time, I'm trying to think back, but I don't think there was really a lot of personal brand stuff going on, right? Like what type of stuff were you doing at the time?
You know, actually, believe it or not,
was it prints mainly? Or?
No, I mean, I've been the whole digital side of things. So when I left Vail Resorts running the creative team, I ended up wanting to work for a women-owned company. So someone referred me to PorchLight. So I was like just becoming a new mom, and it just seemed like an inspiring thing to do, to work for a women-owned, like awesome brokerage. And they were very cool. Like it just like, it seemed boutique to me. But they were always crushing it. But what happened when I went there is that we just really dialed in all of their branding, and we made sure that agents had a lot of tools to connect with their people. So we gave them just different, like one of the things we did was we did this event where we partnered with a big charity, but then they had a connection to Isaac Slade from The Fray. So they had to have the connection, but we ended up doing like a secret surprise pop-up concert, and we told all the agents to bring their friends to this concert. So again, it's like interacting with your clients, interacting with people. And it was just a social thing, but we had this pop-up concert, and it was a surprise concert. So we got everyone
nobody knew about it?
Nobody knew who was going to be the,
but it was just like, it's going to be big.
It's going to be,
me.
Yeah,
you're going to want to be there.
We had, you know how the agents are, we had to like convince them this is going to be big. Trust me. You want to bring your clients to this. And so it's how we opened their Highlands office. We had Isaac Slade in the parking lot do like this little pop-up concert. We had Sweet Cow, like a food truck, and we had a bar basically, and everyone got to bring like a couple guests, and sure enough, it was like this A-lister from the fray. Like it was Isaac Slade from the fray. So we got to, it was really cool, but it was just a very connecting event, like giving them tools for them to like connect with their clients. And so that's what we sort of, and it wasn't all my brain. I will tell you that the owners of that brokerage did such a good job. Like they grew it and I was part of that and I helped with the marketing, but it was just a really cool opportunity. But we gave them tons of opportunities to connect with people.
So how did you, I've always been curious about this. Like, did you have a relationship with Isaac or, how?
That's true. So I didn't, that's what I was going to say. They had a connection through a charity they were involved in. It was called something with music, but it was where they donated, made sure that kids K through 12 could have access to instruments and like music and all of that. So they had a connection. So there was that. So that made it easier. But there was so many different tools that we provided for the agents while I was there, from like gifts for their clients that they could bring to making sure that every time there was an anniversary of a house sale, like that year, they were able to follow up with their clients about that and say, touch base with them and give them like an anniversary gift.
So it's really an agent could step into this sort of system that you helped to build and create, and without a lot of thinking. Because I think that agents, and I know for sure lenders, really we just want to go sell. Right? Like at the end of the day, we want to find the client, we want to sell them a house, or we want to find the client, help them with their mortgage. But like the marketing thing is so important, but to try to figure that out, I mean, that's a lot. You spent a lifetime learning this side of things, right?
Always thinking about the consumer, like it's like put your consumer hat on is what I tell my team, or even me, like all these years, you always have to think about their like journey through the process. Like everything has to be easy for them. You have to constantly over communicate. If you think you're saying it too much, you're not. It's always, and now there's statistics that you have to be in front of someone 7 times. They have to see something 7 to 9 times, like to actually catch on and potentially even convert, meaning like click through or something. So like you'll see an ad for shoes. Like if I see an ad for shoes and I don't pay attention, and then I see it again and I see it again, and like the 7th time I'm like,
eventually you might be curious.
Right, might be curious. So it takes a lot of consistency.
It does. And I'm so glad you brought that up, guys. If you're not listening, now's a great time to listen, because I think a lot of people in our industry, they tend to have this perception, and maybe it's because they personally don't like being emailed all the time or being reached out to all the time. But the reality is there's so much noise out there that if you're comparing your one reach out to somebody else who's in front of them, 25 times in the next 2 weeks, the reality is they're going to pay more attention to the person that's in front of them 25 times, right? And then if there's some sort of data to support that individual liking that product or service, they're going to have a higher probability of making a purchase, right? Or going to the website and maybe buying something else. And so I think, guys, in our business, you can't be afraid to have multiple reach outs. I tell my team this all the time, like we need to have, before we no longer follow up with a client or an agent, have we reached out to them? Our number's 12. Have we reached out to them 12 times? And usually it's like, well, no, we did that text strip, and then we did an email, and then they reached out saying they didn't want to hear from us, and I gave up. Yeah. Right. And it's like, no, totally. You got to keep going, because people need to trust you before they're going to make a buying decision. Totally. I think it's a slow process. And if the more you can authentically like connect with them, whether that's like through social or through email or calling them or having events, like it's about integrating all the different types of marketing and doing it at once, like cross-channel, like kind of always mixing it up. Don't just do one thing. I'm a huge proponent of that. But people will remember you. It's like top of mind marketing. You've probably heard of it. Yeah. Listen, I'm about simple, practical things. But if they see you and you keep in touch, a year from now, when they need a mortgage broker, they remember you. That you're the first person that comes to mind, or one of their friends needs one and they refer you. So I think the more you stay in front of people, the more they remember you when they need your service. I want to go back a little bit. Okay, so you went from Vail to PorchLight, and I wanna really talk about the time where was it PorchLight before
before I started this business?
before
Yes.
ShuBu? Okay, so like talk to us about and tell the audience sort of what was going on in your head. Like, when did you first have the idea?
Yeah.
Was it something where, you know, where you were at, you're unhappy with, or was there just a desire to do more? Was it your, you know, son that played a role and like, man, I got to do more for my son? Like, where did that start?
I'll tell. So there was an actual, like you said, there was like this one thing that definitely made me decide. But going back to when I was earlier in my career, I always wanted to work or own my own agency because I worked at an agency. And then when I was at Vail Resorts, I worked with like a lot of agencies. And I always thought, to be honest, I'm like, it's so cool. I want to work at an agency. I want to own an agency. So I think I manifested it because I said, I want to own an agency one day. I said it like a lot of times to people I worked with. And then that I didn't go and do it right then and there. I was like in my 30s, you know, early 30s, I guess, or 20. And I was at Vail Resorts running the creative team. And then I went to PorchLight. I worked for 2 women that owned PorchLight Real Estate Group. And I had to basically build a marketing team there. They had a very like small kind of very mighty team. And we rebranded, we enhanced their brand. We got them all on social media because you were asking about that. You're like, was it all print? There was a lot of print, I'll be honest. But then we entered and got them on social, and we started giving the agents tools to be on social. And then I had built this team and it was running. Like there was enough people doing their jobs and everything was going great. They'd grown so much. And I realized if I'm running this budget and I'm managing this whole team and I'm coming up with ideas and I'm helping this brokerage grow, and I did it at Vail Resorts, why am I not just owning that agency that I said I would own? And at the time I just had my second child and I did want more flexibility. And by the way, that's kind of a misconception because when you own your own business, it's like 24/7. So I'm like, I'm going to have my own flexibility. And I think
you know that you can get there.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But I also think,
it's a lot of work. Like you're constantly thinking about it. But so I had my second child. I was like, you know what? I can do this. I built a team here. I'm running a budget. I'm hiring. I'm helping, fire. I'm helping the strategy, all these things. I'm like, I can do this on my own. I always wanted to own this agency and I just did it. And I did leave a little bit unplugged, as someone said to me. And I always remember that because I did not have a plan. I didn't have it in place. I think at this point, if you want to do something, you just have to do it. Because if you're going to sit there and try to make it perfect, it's like, at least for the most times because I work with a lot of people with marketing and branding, these big projects. At some point, you just have to go live. You've got to go live.
And I'm so glad you brought this up. I've talked about it actually on the show because, like guys, doing a podcast, this was something that I had just thought about. Like the idea popped into my head probably 3 years ago. Then it was opening the office and I go, you know what, I'm gonna do this whole room and paint it, right? Have the graffiti artist come in. Thank you. So I had that done. But then it was probably still another year of like analyzing podcasts and like reading on like, how am I going to make it perfect? I got to have the right equipment. And honestly, all of these things were these like mental roadblocks. And I remember thinking like, God, I hate this. And it was right around that time where I had heard Bedros Keuilian, who's a very successful entrepreneur, who has a very successful podcast. He talks about this book. I think it's called Who, Not How. Right. And basically identifying first what your genius is.
Yes.
And I'm like, this is not my genius is not setting up microphones, going on Amazon or figuring out the best camera. Like, I don't want any of that. I just want to hear and I want to show up and interview interesting people. Right.
Yeah.
But the point I was trying to make with that is like a year of me trying to make it perfect didn't compare to what I learned within 2 weeks of actually starting the show.
Yes.
Just doing it.
I know. It's like we say in marketing, it's MVP, minimum viable product. I'm not saying go out there with like something that's so shaky and it's not totally ready, but like a website or something, it's always going to be constantly being updated. Social media, it's seconds, it's quick. So if you can pilot things, do it, because then you, like you said, you learn to perfect it. You saw the little like blind spots, and not everything's going to be perfect. But look, you got out there and now you're doing it. And this is so far. I was saying when I walked in, like, this is pretty advanced. You're like, we just started. I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah,
like,
thank you. Thank you. Well, I think that's, and you probably experienced this too, owning a business now, but I think there's always this element of like, I want it to be perfect and I want to have the like most incredible of everything. And so, but that's what makes you an entrepreneur, and that's what makes me an entrepreneur is you're always, you place a big emphasis on personal development and growth and how do I make it better, right? So, eventually we'll hopefully have multiple cameras and be able to have better angles and stuff. But like no one knows. Like think about social media. It's pretty raw too. And it's not like overproduced video. I mean, I think some of it is, but like commercials, back in the day, like those were so expensive and they take so long and but now social media is just a bazillion commercials. Honestly, that's what it is. It takes time. You have a strategy, you think about it, but I look at it as like that's the TV now. Like you're seeing it constantly. And so that's a good way of putting it. And, I think where a lot, and tell me, I'm curious your opinion on this, but so what I've sort of come to witness is a lot of business people that try to create content. They are producing content for the business. What I mean by that is a realtor is taking a photo with their buyer at the closing table. A realtor is posting market stats. A mortgage lender is showing historical rates, right? But like all of their content revolves around educating the consumer about real estate or mortgage or whatever the business is. And I think to your point, what I like the most successful brands that I've seen, they're weaving that into the overall content. But like if you're doing 7 posts a week, let's say, that only might be 2 of the 7. The other 5 are going to be like personal story. It's going to be lifestyle, right? Because people want to tune into like the reality show.
Yes, that's it's like 100%. You are right. People want to see the real life behind the scenes. Like, don't be shy to show that kind of stuff. And then you can intertwine, like you said, some value add content, where you're educating and giving something that's educational. But now they've gotten hooked and they're following you personally, or they're like,
what coffee creamer does Becca drink?
Like I think it's important to show the human side. Like we're just like you were saying at the beginning, people do connect with people and show the human side. Don't be scared to show that. But not everyone has, like, some people don't want to put their face on their company and be the only one, and I get that. So I think there's a balance sometimes if you are building a company that isn't just you, but still there's a way to show like the culture, there's a way to show the team, there's a way to show the behind the scenes that people want to see, or like what you believe in. I mean, I think companies nowadays aren't scared to say what where they stand. That's the way they're being personal in a way. They're connecting with people that way.
Sure. Yeah. And I think, well, look, I mean, like Elon Musk is probably the most successful example of this, but really, I mean, Tesla is a personal brand. Right.
Totally.
Like, look what Elon Musk has created, even with X or Twitter, right?
Yeah.
All SpaceX, like everything really is personal.
Are you driving a Tesla now?
No, I'm not. I'm not.
Curious.
No, I'm not. But I admire the guy for what he's built.
Totally.
Because now people will buy whatever the guy sells because they trust him.
I mean, there's like diehards. My brother-in-law is a diehard Tesla fan. Yes, he's completely, they connect with that, and it's, they follow him and everything about it. So you're right.
So, okay. So let's go back. So you started the agency, but mentally going through that transition, you said it was difficult. You said you realized that I had to kind of rip the Band-Aid off just do it. So did you have like, I'm sure you had some sort of loose plan or something like, okay, here's how I'm going to go get clients.
Oh, so I mean, I'll be very vulnerable right now. I'm a marketer, so I didn't have a lot of sales experience, which was a little bit of a wake-up call, but I definitely knew how to consistently get my name out there, you know, from the marketing side of things. Like I understood that it was important to get PR, which is basically third parties, like endorsing me.
Like, yeah, okay.
I knew that was important. And so all the early days, I was like, any interview, any thing that wanted to write about, I mean, I was looking for it, and that's free. Like if you can do it yourself, so go after it and take the opportunities. Don't overanalyze. But as far as getting clients, wow. I mean, because of all my experience, because I was at Vail Resorts, PorchLight, I was at Starz Entertainment, agencies, I did build like a very big network. And so, okay, this is what happened. Because I put myself out there and I consistently did the PR, the marketing on social, I sent emails, newsletters. I know it sounds dorky, but the once a month newsletter, like I just kept the touch points going. The people in my network then were like, oh, Becca's doing her own thing now. And so I started to get referrals. It has been like, it's slowly built and built and built. But I remember I had one person who did hire me right outside of PorchLight that was starting their own brokerage. And I do have to thank him, like personally, Jay Hebb. I mean, he hired me right away and he's like, can you help me with this brand? And I did. And that was like my first, it was probably pretty scrappy at this point, but we did it. We got it together. We did the whole brand, the website, everything. And then it was just from there, like one referral after another. So another good piece of advice, and that I did, was I shared a lot of the work that I did. So like I would share, you know, oh, we just launched this new brand, or we just did this. And I think people seeing over and over, they just remembered me. So it's all been built on referrals. I haven't really done a lot of paid advertising. Like in the marketing world, it's called organic. Yeah. It's just using the channels that you have, like using all of your channels, but using them together. Like you can't just do one thing. I think sometimes people often think, oh, I'm going to pay for this and it's going to work and I'm going to do it. And then they do it once and they don't get anything from it. And then they just don't do it again. But I think you have to do that one thing you wanted to do, plus other channels, like get yourself out there in other channels and do it kind of strategically all at the same time.
They say that that's one of the differences between a successful business owner and somebody that ultimately is not successful running their business, is their ability to delay results, delay gratification.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Because really all it is like, can you hang in there long enough before you see the results? Because it would stand to reason that anybody who's putting any real effort into building something consistently over time is going to have success with it, right? It's just that a lot of people want results now because we're brainwashed basically to go get a job.
Instant gratification.
Yeah, you go do the work, you get paid. You do the work, you get paid. But, you know, the business owner might be the one paying that person to do the work and not taking a salary themselves, right? Totally.
I mean, that's the first couple years were difficult, but I also started small and I just one client and one project and then multiple projects. And then I had to bring in help. So now I have a team. Like I have a designer, I have a copywriter, I have an account manager.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's
so
cool.
You can't do it all on your own, but I think you just have to kind of take it one step at a time. But I did get the clients from doing the consistent, like putting myself out there and multiple different types of ways. And then the people that were in my network then remembered me and referred me. But the other point to this is that I was very clear about what I was doing. And that's what, like ShuBu Creative, we do branding and marketing, but we're very brand centric. So I'm a big, huge proponent of making sure your brand, like your message is clear. So I think you really need to know who you are, what you do, and why you do it before you do anything, before you market, before you build a website, before you make a brochure. Like you really need to know in one sentence or less, like who you are, why you do, what you do and why you do it. Because, and your target audience, who is that? Can you narrow that down to like
What's
can't
the
even
problem
say
you're
3.
solving for in
Yeah.
sentence?
Yeah. What's the problem you're solving for is a good way to look at it. A mission statement. People don't even realize this. Your mission can be what problem you solve today.
Okay.
Your vision is like what you are ultimately want to do in the future. And it can be kind of totally limitless, your vision.
Yeah, one thing that I've struggled with over the years as I've started different businesses is that lack of clarity.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
I think it must be a common thing, but
Totally
what I
common.
started to realize is that, like I would always have these crazy ideas, right? And either my wife or a friend or somebody would be like, wait, so can you explain it to me again? And
Yeah.
I realized through being asked what it is the company does that I wasn't clear on it, right? Like in my mind, it all sounded good in my head, right? Or I felt like I was on the right track, but being able to articulate with precision and clarity and simplicity, and it's powerful because when you get yourself to that point, it's like
it all comes together.
I
know. So we do like brand clarities. It's a huge part of our like philosophy. You have to have brand clarity, and people sometimes overcomplicate it, but you just need to be able to say, you don't need to read your mission. Like you need to be able to recall it. And so does your team. If you can recall what it is, like off the top of your head that easily, like at Vail Resorts, it was like, I'm here to create an experience of a lifetime. Like I know that, I knew that what I was there to do. And I knew the vision was to reimagine the mountain experience around the world. Because of like being part of that and the clarity there, I was able to take that and connect it. And then now I like work with my clients all the time to help them with their brand. It just needs to be so like, I haven't worked there in years and I can like
you still remember it.
Right.
Yeah,
I know that I was there to create an experience of a lifetime. Like even though I was at corporate, everything we did was about making sure the guests had an experience of a lifetime. So just to have a very clear, and if your employees can catch on, then it really comes together. So people sometimes are like, oh, that's all fluff, like mission, vision, value, whatever. But it's the core of everything.
It's so important.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how important it was until I took the time to do it. And it's like, man, I wish I would have done this 10 years ago.
Because once you get aligned with it, even me, being a branding and marketing person and having my own business, I still struggle with my own like marketing. Everyone struggles with their own thing. And so in 2020, everyone was freaking out, right? Because of COVID. They're like, oh my God, the world's shutting down. That's when I really had to think about what my mission was. And that's when I decided like, I am here to create brands that have purpose and impact. And what it means is like, I'm trying to help you find your purpose. It's very purposeful. And then we're going to help you make an impact. And like those two words, purpose and impact, and impact. And once I started it was easy for me to say, it was easy for me. And then my vision, I was like,
That's awesome. That's great.
I want to create brands like ShuBu Creative. It's very simple. Like we create brands with purpose and impact. And then the vision, I was like, one day I just want to be able to create a brand that changes the world. So that's our vision. Like I want to be on a brand like Tom's shoes or something. Does that make sense? All these brands were helping make an impact, but I hope one day we're on one that like becomes a movement or positively changes the world. So I say we focus on purpose-driven brands, and I've totally learned that everyone has a purpose, and we just have to find that purpose and then help you make the impact. Because if you're clear, you'll make an impact. So that's what it's all about.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So talk to us then a little bit about, do you have an ideal client, or do you work with people in all different types of industries? Is there a particular, focus, or is it just holistically everything to do with brand? Are these startups? Are they existing companies?
I've had to narrow it down, and we have to tell our clients to do that too. So it's not anyone and everyone, but it seems like we're attracting the right clients because we're talking in the way we want to talk. So meaning we're attracting the right people because we've defined we want to do purpose-driven brands. So
they hear the message and they're like, oh, that's me.
They're like, oh, so ShuBu takes on all kinds of different projects, but we're not necessarily, we don't work with startups as much.
Okay.
We're kind of more the nonprofit or the organization or the company that is been around for like 10 or plus years. And they're like, it's time to re-clarify. It's time to like look at everything and come and revamp and get our message crystal clear. And then we'll redo the website, we'll redo all of their social, and then we'll come up with a strategy to like get them to market and then continue to market. And now we're starting to get more clients that don't necessarily need a brand revamp, but they want just us to come in and do a marketing strategy. So believe it or not, they don't realize it, but we're still getting clear on their brand. Like we do these workshops.
You have to if you're marketing, right?
So even though people don't want to rebrand, we still will do an intense like 4-hour workshop with them and get down to like who they are, what they do, and who they do it for and why. And then the next 2 hours we go into marketing strategy. So we have to like clarify. I mean, okay, like if you ignore the world when you create a brand, the world will ignore your brand. So you have to really look at outside. What are people saying about you? This is one thing I will say is you need to get clear yourself, but you also need to talk to your customers and understand how they look at you. So I do like interviews with customers. So if you come to me and we're like, we're going to we want a marketing strategy and we want to market next year and do this and that, I'm going to say, great, let's do the workshop with you and talk to all you and your stakeholders like internally. But we also want to interview like 5 to 15 clients, depending how big they are. But to go back to who our clients are, we do company, like mid-sized companies. And organizations, so they can be nonprofit or for-profit. And then I also work with a lot of women-owned businesses, like that are in the revenues from like $1 million and up. Like I've worked with a lot of leadership coaches, and I mean it spans. There's a lot of industries. We've worked in the healthcare industry.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I think all of the common thread between our clients is that they do really have a purpose and they want to make an impact. Going back to our mission. Yeah.
So I love that mission, by the way. So have you done any work yet, or do you look to do work with personal brands in the future? Is that something you think you'll ever get into?
Yes, like we've taken on, so I mentioned the company and nonprofit, but then we've had a lot of like women-owned businesses, and we've done we're doing personal brands for sure. A lot of those personal brands that we're doing, they have like a big team, they have a company, but we're using that person as like the main crux of the brand.
Sure.
So making, putting out content to make them show that they're a thought leader, or just showing the background of where they come from, or just, all of that. So just kind of showing their story. So everything we work on, we definitely are showing the human side. But we've worked on personal brands too. I mean, like I said, we take on a lot of like women owned or just companies that it is a solopreneur, and they're like in the $1 million revenue and they need to get clarity and then just revamp and kind of get themselves out there in a more strategic way. So we'll sit down and come up with a marketing strategy.
By the way, I think that what you do is so important. I think that,
thank you.
No, I really do. And the reason I say that is because I have sort of like just on a shoestring, but like I've been just trying to figure it out kind of on my own. Now I have hired like a pretty big brand consultant in the past, but I'll tell you, anytime I invest in like getting somebody's help, like I should probably talk to you honestly with what I'm doing, because I've become more clear on what it is. But even hearing you say, purpose and impact, so again, it's like there is more clarity than there used to be, but I need to drill that down even further, and being able to look at what I'm trying to create, because really my personal brand is going to touch multiple verticals. And so that's something I kind of struggle with, right? Like, how do I touch multiple verticals? But then I'm like, well, it's my personal brand, so it's just me. But then looking at it from my client's perspective and like, what is it they're going to be receptive to, or what is it that they're interested in? That's not an exercise I've done. So you should definitely like
we will go and interview like 5 of your clients and you'll be blown away. You'll be like, oh my gosh, because we find themes. And then, being a marketing person, I'm like, these themes are the one, we kind of massage it, but we find these themes and we're like, wow. And it's like telling. I mean, I will tell you, if I talk to all of our clients, we've had hundreds of clients. I talk to them, I do all the stuff, I look at their competitors, all the normal marketing thing, and then I do the interviews with the clients. And that's when like I do get a lot of aha moments and like insights. I'm like, okay, we just found out that you do, I was thinking of an example of, we'll talk to people and they'll be so complicated about what they do, and then we ask their clients and they're like, they just get shit done. I remember, I remember talking to this one client, her customers, and they talked a lot about how they did get stuff done and they were really efficient and they were like just really bold and all these things and had a lot of energy. So getting that information did filter and influence the brand. So the brand's very bold. It has a lot of energy. I just kept seeing like a check mark in my head for the logo. And it was like, we ended up having like this very strong, like chevron looking thing. Yeah. So it all went into all the messaging was very actionable and very strong and bold. But I don't think if I didn't interview her clients, I would have not, it would have been more like businessy and traditional and sophisticated versus like having a lot of energy. But we also looked at like her competitors in the space and all of them were just so conservative. And so that's another, I'm giving you guys a lot of information here, but
it's awesome.
Positioning yourself in the market. Have you heard about that? Like, how do you position yourself?
Isn't there a book called Positioning?
There's probably 1,000 books on it, but it's like, it's like your territory. So you do kind of look at like other brokers there's so many, but like you look at a group of people and you say, where do I fit in here? Like, where are my strengths compared to them? Okay. But also, what are my weaknesses? And then you can kind of play on that and position yourself. So we positioned this client as very bold, strong energy, like that chevron strong, like that's actually a male, like dominating, like kind of mark. But it all came from the check mark that they get shit done.
And from interviewing their customers. And the other thing I was going to say with that I don't know if you do this, but there are often times, and maybe this is just me being like overly not paranoid, but like self-aware, self-conscious. But sometimes I wonder, I wonder if we stopped hearing from that person. Because of something, right? Like, did I say something? Did the team do something? Right. And
no, people
overall,
are just busy.
We've got it. Well, okay. So that's awesome to hear. Right.
Yeah.
But it's almost like it would be valuable to be able to have clients or past clients interviewed where it was they knew it was like a safe place to say whatever they wanted. It was almost anonymous, like you knew who they were, but there was an agreement where that would never get shared.
Right.
Because I don't know, I always think it'd be helpful, like, hey, we interviewed, 50 clients and hey, 10 of them said that you were a little off-putting because of this.
Oh, it'll be such valuable information and
super valuable.
It is safe. Like we'll go and it's not even longer than 20 minutes of a Zoom interview or a phone call interview with clients, their customers. And we ask very open-ended questions and then we get all the information. And by the way, before AI, this was like, I used to do this by hand. Like I would read all these quotes and everything and we'd put it in these different programs. But now AI does help us because we can transcribe things. But anyways, we see all these themes and we go back to the clients and we present it in a way we call them brand tensions. And then those tensions are the things that we are like, hey, you need to work on this. Like they don't know if you are I'm just using a random example from another client. They don't know if you're for climate change or if you're energy transition. Like they don't know if you're like over here or over here. And then they're like, whoa, we didn't know there was that tension with us. And then they can fix it. So they don't even care like who said it. It's just giving you you see common trends. So it's really good to, I think, get the outside world's opinion and intertwine that into your brand. But then I'm like going to say right out of the other side of my mouth, you also have to be authentic to yourself. Like it's a balance. Sure. You can't just do what like you think people want you to do. You have to really believe in what you're doing, but getting that perspective also will help.
Well, I think a lot of people, they tend to, and I'm one of these people, like I am definitely, or maybe not as much anymore, but like definitely a people pleaser. I want people to like me. And I think with social in general, especially if you have a big following, like you're going to have a lot of people that are haters. Like there's going to be a lot of people that talk crap, that start saying, you know, hurtful things in the comments. And so I think for that reason, a lot of people just like, I don't even want to say it because of that. And what I've sort of come to learn is that, yeah, you might have those people, but you're also going to have super fans. As long as you're authentic to yourself, right? And so being authentic to yourself, I think, is where it starts. Not worrying about what other people think of you. What other people think of you is not your business. What other people think of you is God's business. And all you do is focus on delivering an authentic message and then having those people that are going to appreciate that, appreciate it, and again, become super fans.
You're totally right. And by the way, the fact that you brought that up is so funny. We're creating like brand ambassador programs. That's what we're calling it. So you're just formalizing your super fans, and you can really leverage them to help, like, it's kind of influencer, but not really, because it's essentially people that you have relationships with. So you can leverage those people to help you get more visibility. So we're helping we came up with a brand ambassador program for our company.
Oh, cool.
And they have a lot of high profile clients in like sports in the university area. And so I was like, wait a minute, why are we not leveraging your relationships with these like coaches at these really big schools?
For sure.
And so we formalized those relationships. And so we basically were like, pick 10 of these big coaches at these big, you know, well-known universities, without me giving like all the details of this client, but, and then you leverage those people and come up with a way to get, like, reciprocate, of course, like give them something back, but can they all give you a Google review this is so simple. Can they all give you a Google review that then you can use on your social? Can they all interview you like this? Like, can you, like, you're really ahead of the game, like bringing in people to interview. So that's another way to use those ambassadors. Can you share, collaborate content? Can you do like a revenue share? I mean, that's more product based, but there's a lot of ways that you can create like a brand ambassador or advisory board and use those people. And then those people are also really honored because you're saying you're valuable to like insights.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So if like just formalizing it, and you're doing a lot of things like that because you have a big network, right? And you're bringing in people, and you're using, like, we're partnering and you're getting in front of all my people. Does that make sense? So just thinking of it like that. But if you have 10 super fans, think about how you can really work with them even more to help get your brand out there.
I gotta think about that. That's a great suggestion. So what would you say to somebody maybe in the real estate space or even in the mortgage space where they're kind of at that point where they're like, man, okay, I hear everything you're saying, Becca. I've kind of known this. I've known that I have to start to take this seriously, because I really think, in any industry, but I really think in real estate, 5 years from now, even for sure, 10 years from now, you're going to have agents that look back to like this time and they're going to be like, man, I should have started the podcast. I should have taken brand seriously.
Economy? Sorry,
I'm just saying, right now is when I think people need to take it seriously. I'm just saying 10 years from now, it might be too late. They're going to be looking at it going, crap, I missed the boat. I should have taken it seriously back then, when Derek was telling me to.
Oh, on taking the marketing seriously, or just like doing things
personal
like
brand,
right?
Yeah, and really building.
I mean, I could say, I don't want to like make anyone feel bad, but I would say if you aren't there yet, you're really behind. I mean, at this point, like if you're not putting yourself, building a personal brand. Back to your personal brand question, because we do a lot of companies, but then we also brand the CEO. Separately. You know what I mean? So I didn't answer that as clearly, but we're big, like over here branding the whole company. And that actually sometimes doesn't get as much attention, but then we're personal branding the CEO.
Yeah, they're the front man.
Yeah, on LinkedIn, and sometimes even some of their C-suite or whatever it is, and then it just works together because they're like, they see like their following or they get to know this person, and then they're like, oh, that's their company. I mean, I know personally, I have more of I don't have a huge following or anything, but because I'm constantly helping other people with their promotions, but I know personally I have much more of a network and a following than I do like on my company channels. And I think that's okay because you get to know people personally and people connect with people, and you talk about your company, you talk about your work, sure. And then they're like, oh, and then they go check out your company. But I think it works together is what I'm saying. It's not the end all be all. Like nothing I said is the end all be all, but it's a great way to do it is to really get yourself out there. And if you aren't doing it yet, I do think, I mean, you're already way behind. I don't want to make anyone feel bad, but if you're not on social media or I've met some people that aren't doing that, and I'm like, how are they even functioning?
And Becca, I was one of those people, and what I had the story I had told myself for so long is like, like if I got to be on social for you to be my friend, like I don't want you as my friend. And I would say things to myself like, God, it just seems like I'm trying to come up with something to like post. Really what it felt like is I'm being like I've got this big ego because I'm posting stuff. And what I've come to realize is it's actually the exact opposite. Because if you think of what the ego does, the ego protects us from shame and embarrassment, doesn't it? So if the ego protects us from shame and embarrassment, then it's really the person that's sitting in the corner, that's private, that's on the elevator, not saying a word to you, that's keeping everything to themselves, right? Like the millionaire next door, the guy's worth $1 billion, but he's not going to share any of his secrets because that dude's got a huge ego, right?
Sure.
And it's really knowing that what you have to share is valuable. Somebody that could save somebody's life. Your message might inspire somebody to think differently. It might give them a different level of awareness. It might, it might cause them to go, man, I got to get into marketing, or I got to develop my personal brand as a result of this podcast. So I think you've got to share what it is you have to share and what's authentic to you.
I know. And like telling your story is so important, and it doesn't have to all be all social. It can be like, Derek, I met you, you're a huge networker and you have great personal, live, real human life, connection. So it's important to do both and get yourself just meeting new people and getting your story out there and telling it in a clear way.
Well, hey, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. But before we wrap up, can you let people know where they can find you?
Yes. And thank you for having me. This was so fun catching up with you. My website is ShuBu Creative. It's ShuBu creative.com. Okay. And then you can also just go to my website, check it out. And I'm also at ShuBu Creative on social channels like LinkedIn and all of that. But Becca, Becca at ShuBuCreative.com is my email.
Anything brand, anything marketing. Becca's the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is so fun.
Yep, this was awesome.
Thanks so much.
Every time that I see a limit, I push right past it. Don't care if you got here first, the one to win is the last one standing. Say my life is like luck, nah, I had to plan it. The way I work is out of this earth. I can feel the momentum. Need it all, no fractions. Dream it, then I gotta